Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grow With Us. My name is Evan Barton, and I'm your host who helps create conversations with the movers and shakers of a growing tech center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Grow With Us is a podcast that highlights the work of In Tulsa and informs you about the exciting and innovative work being done around the city by its best and brightest. In Tulsa's mission is to connect talented individuals and companies to stimulate economic growth in Tulsa and to create more prosperous communities across the region. Each episode, Grow With Us discusses the growth of opportunities, the growth of communities striving for change, or the tech and innovation that is changing the landscape of Tulsa. This week, we are in conversation with Tara Payne, Member Success Coordinator at 36 Degrees North, who will be chatting with me about getting involved in local communities, the Black Gold Entrepreneur Series, and Black History Month in Tulsa. Welcome, Tara. It's so great to have you on.
It's good to be here. Thank you so much, especially during Black History Month. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you on, Tara. Tara and I have known each other for a long time, I feel like. A long time, you could say that's only a year, but it feels like a long time.
You're so easy to talk to, so you know, one of these people that's just like, okay.
Yeah, I guess that's why I have a podcast.
It works.
It works. It fits the personality. That's what it's got to do. But I'm super excited to have you here today. Let's go ahead and let everyone know a little bit about you. Do you mind just telling us your story in kind of whatever way you feel comfortable?
Okay. Well, I was born here in Tulsa to two wonderful parents, and I grew up actually in Bartlesville, which is not far, but it's the home of ConocoPhillips, Field 66. My sisters and I grew up there. Following that, went to school at the University of Oklahoma, much to my father's chagrin. And let's see, following that, came back to Tulsa and just began to work, then went back to school and at TCC, which I love TCC, graduated twice.
That's awesome.
With a liberal arts associates and then a Spanish certificate, a Spanish interpreting skills certificate.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then my husband and I met in my 20s. I got married when I was 30. We have a 6-year-old daughter and a dog, Tegan, who was our first baby. And we reside here in Tulsa. And I love Tulsa. I've loved Tulsa since I was a little girl. So
that is awesome. No, I also love Tulsa. We could talk about Tulsa. That's what this podcast is about, is about Tulsa.
Great things happen in Tulsa.
That's so great. I also like that TCC is actually, people's experience there is really interesting to hear. I feel like a lot of people intersect with, I guess I'll say, Tulsa Community College, and so many different parts of their life. And I really like that it finds people. I love TCC.
Me too. I love it too. Actually, it made a really big impact on me. Being at the University of Oklahoma and coming from Bartlesville, is a smaller place.
Yeah.
So then coming from Bartlesville, going to OU, and my classes are hundreds of people. And I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, I had a major, but it just was kind of overwhelming. But you're right. TCC, when I came home, it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah. And especially, the difference between Bartlesville, Norman, and Tulsa, I think are really... A lot of people will tell you they're just Oklahoma towns, right. But I think they're just knowing the context of each of those cities. I think there's a different legacy in each one, which is really interesting to grapple with.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's kind of, let's focus in on Tulsa a little bit here. What has your experience as a Tulsan been like?
So growing up in Bartlesville, Tulsa was like the big city, right? The place that I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I love Tulsa. My parents, they're both from here. They both graduated Booker T. So for me, Tulsa has been amazing. It's been the place where I've come into my own as a professional, as a person. I've met wonderful people here. So Tulsa has just been great. Legit, I probably should have a T-shirt on, because I love Tulsa.
I think there's a few of those out there. We'll have to find one.
Get one. Steve Cluck, he doesn't make
yes,
those? Okay.
Yes. No, Tulsa is that's exactly, we have a shared experience in that regard, because I think that I'm kind of in that moment right now of coming into my own professionally, and it's so cool. It's so cool to have conversations with people that are doing it or have done it, and kind of hearing that. I think that it goes in little sprints. Sometimes you're really feeling it, and sometimes there's times where you have hard times, and it's okay to have a hard time regardless of where you are. I think the whole bloom where your planet is something that you want to aspire to, but sometimes you're not blooming. And that is okay, as long as you have a support system.
That's true.
And that's what I feel about Tulsa. I do have that support system here.
Yeah, Tulsa is a great support system. And sometimes it's not that you're not blooming, but sometimes you are like still in the soil trying to break through, you know?
Exactly.
So yeah, there's challenges are going to happen, but I've learned that those challenges are part of the beauty of the journey and not like, you know?
Yeah. No, the part, like, it's better. I mean, obviously it sucks while you're going through it, but the retrospect of the lessons that you learn, sometimes, I know we're talking so broadly about some stuff, but I feel like these past couple of weeks have really just been a lot of, we were talking about this before we went live. It is hard out here.
It's hard. This adulting world is so much, you know, and things can happen. And sometimes life can take you by surprise and the wind gets knocked out of you and you're like, what just happened? You know?
Exactly.
That's whenever support systems are very important, you know?
Yeah. And that's, it's kind of why I need to be reinvigorated by, I feel like I'm going to be reinvigorated by our conversation today, because something about centering ourselves in community just like really changes my perspective on like the world, to be honest.
Yes.
So let's get into it.
Let's
talk about kind of what communities have impacted you in your professional trajectory. We've kind of talked about this, Tulsa being the landscape in which we've grown. Kind of tell me a little bit about who's kind of helped you out along the way.
So definitely my family. My faith community is very I rely on them very heavily. So my church family, my family, and every experience that I've had the fortune of meeting people who I've kind of linked up with, and they encourage me, I encourage them. And so just holding on to those people and the things that they tell me in the times whenever maybe we're apart. But definitely coming to the ecosystem here at the Tulsa Entrepreneurial Ecosystem and 36 Degrees North has been wonderful. Like you said, we have challenges everywhere, and I definitely am not immune to those. But just community has been so important in shaping who I am as a person, personally and professionally.
Yeah, I think that what's really interesting kind of about what you just said is that it feels like you're telling me that you've gotten the opportunity to, one, be pour into it and also pour into others.
Absolutely.
Which that reciprocity in community, I think it changes the way that you interact with the space, because you're not just taking or you're not just giving.
Yes.
And that can be where the difference is.
It's a beautiful dance of both.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like with family, at least, that's kind of been my, I wouldn't say hardship, but just like the challenge this past couple of months, just with the coronavirus that we're still dealing with. Right. I mean, especially around the holidays having just passed, like, the way that you interact with your family is so interesting, because it does sometimes feel like you're giving a lot and not getting a lot. That can be challenging.
It can be challenging, yeah. And so there are the times whenever, you know, our community that kind of does the pouring back in may be outside of our family, but then it allows us to go back to our family and pour back in.
Exactly.
And, you know, vice versa.
Yeah. See, I feel like I always take something from either an interaction. I'm like, I think I need to use this whenever I'm dealing with this person in my family.
You know what? One person who has been extremely instrumental, my best friend and I have been best friends since we were at OU. I won't tell you how long ago that was, because that's nobody's business but ours. But yeah, she's been so instrumental.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me more about that. What is it that you get to rely on her for?
So my best friend, her name is Tori Dixon. She lives in Fort Worth, Texas. And just being able to, it was weird because we kind of lost touch after college. And then one day I just felt like I want to call her, and I happened to remember her number, and I called it, and it was still the same. And from that day, we've just been like, hey, what's up? The support, you know, I can call and say when I'm up. I can call and say when I'm down. I can call and we can pray together. I can call and we can laugh. We can take trips, and we have, you know, just all of it. And I can just be authentic in who I am with her, and she meets me where I am. Now, it helps too that she's a mental health therapist and just an all-around sweet person.
Yeah, you've got a good connection there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely blessed.
No, that's so interesting. I definitely think that it's really good to have people around you that are pretty, I would guess the word is aware of mental health and the state of how everyone's mental health might be in a different spot right now.
Absolutely.
I think that we're getting to this like sense of understanding, maybe that, you've got your physical well-being, you've got your spiritual well-being, and
Your mental.
you have your mental well-being, and those are things that we need to take care of.
They are very important.
And I guess this can kind of serve as a transition into this conversation too about Black History Month, because I think that it is important to be very open and honest about how we're feeling in this moment. So tell me about. I have a lot of questions for you about Black History Month, but let's just talk about what it means to you and kind of how you're approaching this month. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great about Black History Month, especially being a mom of a 6-year-old and being able to kind of pass along. So I come from a long line of what I call storytellers. Like my dad and my uncles always are telling stories. And I didn't understand back in the day, like my dad always has the story. But now it's so important because I see now that in that story, he was sharing with me legacy. He was sharing with me Black Wall Street. He was sharing with me that we have someone in our family who was the first Black highway patrolman in Oklahoma, those different things. And so I get the opportunity to share that with my daughter. So for me, Black History Month is like, in 36 degrees North Camp 2, we're in historic Greenwood. Like we're in the area that was Black Wall Street. Yeah. So I love it. It's surreal and it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think you're getting to interface with a lot of the Black community in Tulsa that needs to know that someone like you is in your space.
Wow.
I think I think that it's really important that we're in this moment where visibility is important, representation is important. I think that it feels like we've been talking about those two things for so long.
Yeah.
But I think we're really I don't know. I say we. It feels like the people that I have surrounded myself with are really leaning into the fact that is so important. It's very important to identities. I think that we could talk about so many things with Black History Month and especially with just where we are in this city too. We're right down the road from Black Wall Street, and I think we need to talk about that every time. Not every time, but we need to make sure we're talking about that whenever we're grounding ourselves in discussions like this.
I love how I think it was February 1st and I was driving to work and I looked over to my left, just close to where we are here in the studio, and I saw like a white something out of the ground and it said Historic Greenwood District. And it just gave me a sense of pride. And I know it makes me emotional too. Yeah. Because thinking of the weight of what happened here. Not only am I Black, but I'm also Native, as are you. We share that. And so just having those things together that day, I just was like, wow, I'm alive at this time in this city, in this part of the city, because I could have been anywhere. Yeah. So I don't take it for granted.
I'm so glad to hear that. I felt that way so much during the Centennial Week of last year. Gosh, oh my gosh, what an emotional time in this city. I think it was so emotional because it felt like we were treating it like it was an actual thing. Yeah. It was the first time I felt like I was surrounded in a space where people weren't denying that it ever happened, or that we were having honest conversation about how to make it better. Yes. And that we're almost like all agents of that, I think, in terms of, we're all striving towards equitable change in the ecosystem that I work in. At least I can point to anyone on my team and be like, I know what you're doing for Black people right now, which is huge.
It is huge. It is huge. And historically, I was thinking about it this morning, like Tulsa is obviously a tight-knit community. And that was evident even and this is kind of weird when it came to me this morning, even in the massacre, because we had, of course, the community that built itself up, right, out of necessity. And then whenever it happened, the tragedy that happened, the community who actually perpetuated the crime was tight enough that people have, like you said, not talked about it for years, right? And so we all have this sense of community. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's such a great thing to then be able to transmute that and now be a part of, okay, let's talk about this and be a part of the healing process and say, yeah, it was horrible for all of us, but let's talk about it and let's see what we can do to make it better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Black Wall Street is often the focal point when we're talking about Black history in Oklahoma, because it's almost like we have this event that's so meaningful to Black history that it's the only thing or not the only thing, but sometimes it feels like it. Sometimes it feels like it eclipses all of Black history that's beyond Oklahoma a little bit. So I think it's both important to zoom in and zoom out. We can take so much from the Black Wall Street legacy and the legacy of the massacre, and we can also take from all of the achievements of Black people throughout this whole country. Yeah. So there's so much to, I think, be uplifted by this month. It's almost Aaron Wiggum, who
Yes.
he preaches sometimes on some of our meetings, and I love it. But he did this activity with us on Monday where he was doing some trivia, and it was really interesting. None of us knew the trivia. He was asking us who was the inventor of the hairbrush and who was the inventor of the doorknob. And these are all Black people.
Yes.
That
the stoplight,
all of these things that, a room full of people that want to say that they are enacting this change, we all were silent because we've all grown up in this system that doesn't teach us about Black
contributions.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the fun thing, because I get to share those with my daughter, Asha. And then the other day, who doesn't love Elmo as a kid, right?
Oh.
I was like, Asha, did you know that Elmo is actually, the puppeteer for Elmo is a Black man? And she was like, what? So
there's a lot of discourse on Twitter right now is about if Elmo is Black. I don't know if you have any
Elmo's
hot takes.
obviously red, but he's Black.
He is. Yes, I agree with you.
It's kind of like Jesus. Like, do we really care? His contributions they speak for themselves.
Let's get going. Kind of in the direction about your involvement in Tulsa. So, I know you as the bright and smiling face that welcomes folks into Camp 2 at 36 Degrees North. Kind of tell me about how you came into that position and all of the things that you do.
So earlier you mentioned challenges, right? In 2019, I found myself, as did my husband, as did a lot of us, at home, right? And in 2019, I hadn't started my business yet. Actually, I just left financial services. And I was like, you know what? I want to do something that makes a difference. And I always have, but I'm really ready to find out what it is now.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've always been curious about entrepreneurship, and I wanted to be in an environment where I could be around other people who are disrupting things, who had businesses, who were creatives, who I would be able to be encouraged by. And so I just went to LinkedIn and looked, and 36 Degrees North just happened to be hiring. Wow. I really think it was serendipitous, but yeah. So that's how I came here to 36 Degrees North. And I started at base camp, and then eventually, like you said, moved to Camp 2.
That's awesome. It feels like when I walk to Camp 2 and just walk into that space, I'm like, I think Tara should be here. I feel lost when you're not there sometimes.
When I was recently out, my family, as we were talking about before this, had COVID. And I got messages from members like, where are you? Are you okay? It's not the same. And I'm just like, oh, that's so sweet, because they are like my family there.
Yeah. I think that you do a really good job of instilling your spirit in a space. Like when I walk in there, I'm like, I really am looking for Tara. I'm like, I need to know that she knows that I'm here so that she and I can have a conversation.
And what's interesting is that whenever people come in, I want them to know that I know they're there, because they're important. Their presence is important to me. So I'm glad that I do that for people as well.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, especially when, like, if you think about what a co-working space is, it is oftentimes impersonal, because you're there for your business. You're there for your own necessarily like benefit, but there's a community aspect that is so important, and obviously it's a part of your job
That's one of my favorite parts.
to do that, but you do it so easily.
Thank you. I love to build community and I have like a weird knack of, let me connect. How can I connect these two things?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't seem to have any connections, but I'm going to find one, and I'm going to make sure they know they're connected and connect them so that they can take that somewhere else.
I think a lot of people in this ecosystem have that weird thing. We got to find a word for it, because it's a connector mentality. I feel like, because I feel like I have that too, of like, I know A person and I know B person. I think A and B would get along really well together.
Yes.
Mutually beneficial too.
Oh yeah.
So something that I know of about your experience and your work at 36 Degrees North is the Black Gold series that ran throughout the summer of 2021. And it was an amazing program. And can you kind of tell everyone listening about that program and about that series and what it means to you?
For sure. So the Black Gold series, which I'm proud to say that I named, and it was a play on, of course, entrepreneurship being Black gold, and as well as we're in Oklahoma, so oil is literally black gold. 36 Degrees North actually had the desire to do a Black-led initiative before I even joined the team. And so I just happened to come in at the right time and was able to work with Mark Lamont, who I love, one of my colleagues there. And we were able to build this together and to say, what is this going to be? It was all different kind of things. And we ended up on a speaker series. And the series actually highlights the contributions of Black entrepreneurs, Black pioneers there in Black Wall Street times.
Yeah.
As well, and as told by current modern day entrepreneurs. So we have a guest that's local to Tulsa, and we give them a Black Wall Street person. Actually, some of our guests have been our descendants. So they will talk about some people from their family. And we talk about the different things that maybe that are similar in their lives and that were, different, and what impact it's had on them and what impact it's had, it being the massacre, and just not just the massacre, but before the massacre, Black Wall Street and the amazing community that it was, that it's had on our community today.
Oh, yeah. We talk a lot about the legacy. Yes, when I think about Black Wall Street and the legacy of Black Wall Street, I now, as of a couple of months ago, associate a lot of what I can visually recall to what I've seen at the Greenwood Rising Museum, which this is a huge plug for them. By the way, I want everyone to go to that place.
It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's beautifully tragic. I think
that's a good way of putting it.
I think that there's so many tough things to kind of grapple with in that museum, because I think that they do a really good job of telling that perspective of what it was like. And that's something that I think as more time goes on, it's harder to put yourself in the shoes of people, that was 100 years ago. But I think that the way that you're visually seeing what's happening and you're reading it and you're kind of processing it all at the same time, it's actually really easy to put yourself there, and to probably, especially as a Black person, to be like, there's parts of that museum that would probably make you fearful because of one of the scenes where they really just talk about how it actually started. And it's such an important thing, I think, for non-Black people to experience.
Absolutely, for sure. And then we talk about legacy and predecessors, thinking about the Greenwood Cultural Center, which actually is our partner for the Black Gold series. We partnered with them, and the story that they tell, and how that impacted Greenwood Rising. Because we know Phil worked or was on the board there at Greenwood Cultural Center before the work that he does here at Greenwood Rising, and just how important it is to have those stories. I don't know if it doesn't feel hard to me to put myself in 100 years. I think because my grandmother, when she passed away, was 103.
Wow.
And so I actually had that direct line to what was it like? What were you doing? How did you feel? She wasn't, directly affected. But for her to be that age, it's just like, oh, wow, this is like 2 generations away from me.
Exactly. That's like another thing about this month, that the pictures that you see are all trying to show you that either the civil rights movement was like 50 years. It was only 50 years ago. It's I think we're almost at 60 years, but it's in black and white. So it makes you think that's older. That kind of optics game is really, really interesting, because it's purposeful. But talking more about Black Gold series, I think that what's really interesting about the series is that you could go to so many different people in this community and be like, do you want to do this?
Yes.
And I felt like you had a lot of people that were so passionate and ready to talk about whatever it was that they ended up talking about. And you got to lead one of the weeks, did you not?
I did. I led the first week, and that actually was not the original plan, but Mark suggested it. And I was like, wait, what? Because while I am an entrepreneur, I felt like I was too young in my entrepreneur game to speak to, the magnitude of Black Wall Street and entrepreneurship. I thought that maybe there were other people who were more experienced than I, but it was beautiful to be able to have that conversation with Michelle Brown-Burdex from Greenwood Cultural Center and kick it off. That was exciting. And actually the series was so popular that people were like, why did you stop? So we still do it on a quarterly basis. Actually, it's coming up this Thursday, and Trey Thaxton of Greenwood Ave is our guest.
That is amazing. I was going to say, the second part of this question was, how is Black Gold being brought into the whole year? Because I think that there's an element, I'm sure you've heard this before, there's an element of it that needs to stay in the culture of 36. And that's so awesome to hear that it's still going.
It's still going, yeah.
Is there a way that if anyone is curious can either get involved or maybe in the programming or even just watch it remotely if they're not in Tulsa?
Yes, absolutely. So they can go to our Facebook page, our 36 Degrees North Facebook page, and catch all the episodes there. I'm not sure if they're still on our website, but they could check 36n.co. But it's definitely on our Facebook page and they can see it there.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. I would love to hear just more about like what being an entrepreneur has been like for you.
For me, I believe it's been like the realization of a lifelong dream, because I had this, before I wanted to just be a singer, like in travel. I wanted to be Beyonce before she existed. I wanted to be Whitney Houston because that was my era. But I always had this thing in the back of my mind. I was always coming up with ideas for businesses and solutions for problems. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really realize that was entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I didn't have somebody that I could point to directly that I knew who was what I considered an entrepreneur. So I thought, you have to have something else. Like you have to have a degree or something else first, not realizing that, no, you just have to have an idea and the gumption to start. So for entrepreneurship for me, probably, so along the years, I've been like through different multi-level marketing companies. And that type of thing. And people say that you go through about 12 different things before you actually find the one that's actually yours. And so I can't remember how many of those I did.
I know. Who knows if it was 12 or 10 or 14.
80, right? I'm sure my family's like, what is Tara doing now? But yeah, coming to 36 Degrees North. And in 2019, whenever we are stuck at home, I was like, what can I do with my current skills that can make a difference? So entrepreneurship has been a beautiful discovery, and meeting different people like in the ecosystem who will just say, hey, that's a great idea. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
So it lives in my head. So I was like, I think it's good to me, but to hear other people say that, it's great.
Yeah. I mean, you did a whole pitch competition and got to tell the story of your product, and I've seen your website and everything. Like, that's so awesome.
That was so fun, and I was so nervous. So Build in Tulsa had a female founders pitch competition, and I won second place for my idea. Thank you.
That's so awesome.
An online platform that connects local founders to pre-vetted virtual assistants. So it's called Maven's Meet. And actually, I just launched a couple days ago my landing page. Yes. And I'm working on the platform now.
That's so awesome. Yeah. So reach out to Miss Tara about Maven's Meet. She's got lots of people to connect you with, especially in the entrepreneurs. Kind of rounding out this episode and kind of maybe just zooming out a little bit more. I'd like for you to kind of engage in this little exercise with me of, choosing a time in your life where things felt uncertain or uncomfortable. And what advice would you give to yourself that you think could have helped you? And kind of telling that story a little bit too about what you actually did instead if you didn't take that advice.
So I can think of so many, including the time in 2019. But what I will talk about is my experience trying to become a mother. Mm-hmm. It was so challenging. And actually, what I didn't say is I published a book about it in September 2020. That was very challenging. What I would tell myself is just to feel what you feel, keep going. Like make a note of it, literally a note, and surround yourself with people who love you, which is what, looking back, happened, but it wasn't an intentional thing. And share, don't isolate, because whatever it is, whether it's trying to have a baby or starting a business or losing a loved one, whatever, you're not alone. Like there are people who probably are experiencing the same thing that you are right now, and people who are there waiting like with open arms to comfort you, even if that means not saying a word and just holding you and letting you cry, or whenever you're excited, shouting with you, or, saying, let's go get coffee, just whatever it is, So those challenging times, just knowing that they will come, that you'll get through it, and you're supported.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think that it's so true to know that, and just to know that you can weather a lot of storms. And I think that you get that confidence to do that, and by surrounding yourself with people that help you realize it every day.
Yes.
And I know that is sometimes a privilege, having community and having people around you. But it's something to work for too. And you do have to work for it. It does not come to you easily sometimes. And if it does, you're lucky.
Yeah. And I feel like if you set your intentions on having something, that it will inevitably come to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much, Tara, for being on this episode of Grow With Us.
Thank you.
It's been so great to have you. If there's anything that you would like for our Grow With Us listeners to reach out to, or any ways that they can reach out to you, how can people find you?
So they can go to my website, taradpayne.com. And there you can find out more about the virtual assistant work that I do, the book that I published, just my story about myself and my family. Also, if you are a virtual assistant, or if you are a person who is administratively gifted, and you're like at a point in your life where you're like, I just want something different, please go to mavensmeet.com and sign up, subscribe there to be added to our list so that when the platform goes live, that you can be notified, because it's going to not only be connecting founders to VAs, but it's also going to be building up those VAs that come in and forming a community and letting people know that with the skills you have, you can actually move mountains, like you can change things.
Oh, yeah. Don't undervalue the value of admin work. That's awesome.
Yes. So they can find me there. Also can go to 36 degrees or 36and.co on the 36 Degrees North site, and you can find me there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tara.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you, Grow With Us listeners. For our listeners of Grow With Us, I'd like to plug a few resources that might be helpful for you. If you would like to stay in touch with all of our featured jobs and opportunities at In Tulsa, then please join our talent network. You can join at talent.intulsa.com. That's talent.intulsa.com. By joining our talent network, you will get access to our newsletter, where you can stay up to date with our latest career advice, featured opportunities with In Tulsa partner companies, and our placement success stories. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to be noted. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and wherever else you listen to podcasts to be notified when more episodes of Grow With Us are released. Let us know what you think about how we're doing by rating and reviewing. And huge thank you to our editors at Rant9 Studios and Jesse Ulrich. This has been Grow With Us.